Roll one, Coach Vermeil.
Go ahead.
You ready? Improvement through weight training in the offseason? No, I've lost my thought. Let's start over again. I had to hire a very competent defensive staff. The staff will be... Oh, let's start over. Having been the first having been the first special teams coach in the NFL in You better... We'll be here. Sometimes I get going too fast, see?
You gonna be a football player when you grow up?
Today is the best day of your life. Believe it.
Give me 18 years of daylight. That's all right.
Greatest leader I've ever known.
What a ride it's been!
Hard work is not a form of punishment. Growing up in Calistoga, in the Napa Valley, my grandfather Vermeil, my dad's dad, made all the Vermeil family wines. It was always a family topic, a discussion about the quality of the wines, the quality of the grapes, the vineyard. So that was always part of my life. When I retired, I had some time, and we were making wine for fun in the 90s. And in 2008, some friends came to me and said, let's take your winemaking process as a hobby and turn it into a business.
For Coach Dick Vermeil, the business may have changed, but his approach has not.
Nobody was going to outwork him. That's just, we're going to outwork anybody. We're on the field, as coaches, that's what he develops. That's what he believes in.
Coach was on Las Vegas time. If you walk in one of those casinos, there's no clock. Because, there's a reason for that. Well, Dick had no clock.
There's just no easy way to do anything, and we sell that all the time in our football program, and there was a living example of the results of hard work.
Sometimes he came up with some interesting expressions like, it only takes 48 hours to get your legs back.
Nobody ever drowned in sweat. That was a saying that we had as we went out the door, heading out to one of his legendary, brutal 3.5 hour practices.
Get to him, Leroy. You're going to have to be quicker than that. That's not quick enough.
As hard as we worked, he worked twice as hard. It wasn't like, we're working hard and he's on a golf cart. He's there working twice as hard.
All right, get it to him. Take him.
We scrimmaged against them when I was with the Colts before I got traded the next year. After practice, we walked off the field. They went back to practice. They practiced for another hour.
The only way you can get better is to work.
He works you to the point that you have to make a decision. You're going to either fold or you're going to buy in and get stronger.
Hey, never has it been more important to go to work. So offense, gotta go to work. Defense, gotta go to work. Special teams, let's go, come on.
How did Dick Vermeil take 3 losing teams in 3 different decades and turn them into winners?
Come on, Robert, go! Oh, don't get, come on,
The same way he makes the wine that now bears his name, with the right combination of people, patience, passion, and hard work that goes all the way back to his roots.
Well, I think what I remember most about Calistoga is the home I was born in, and my dad's old garage, how he made a living, was right behind the house. He had 3A and National Automobile Towing Services up all hours of the night, all the time. I never saw my dad's hands clean ever.
I remember going out to Calistoga, and I went and said, Mr. Vermeil, I'm Jim Murray, and I said, we're playing your son's first game, preseason. How many tickets do you want? And he looked me right in the eye, and he said, Jimmy, I have to work. I can't go to the game. And you knew who Dick Vermeil was from that second.
The son of a mechanic soon turned his tuning skills to football. From Stanford, where he shared a sideline with assistant coach Bill Walsh, to the Los Angeles Rams under head coach George Allen. In 1974, he was hired as the head coach at UCLA, where he once again worked alongside a legend.
Dick obviously recognized the talents of Coach John Wooden.
Whereas the previous head coach didn't want to give too much accolation to the basketball program, Dick did not let his ego get involved.
The recruiting was over, and USC had beaten us on a couple really good kids, and I was really down. And Dick, he says, don't worry about those guys cross town. Just worry about the players you have and make them the best they can be. And that was a concept that I used every place I coached.
In just his second year, Vermeil's Bruins beat their crosstown rivals to earn their first Rose Bowl berth in 10 years.
UCLA belongs in the Rose Bowl, just like UCLA belongs playing Indiana in basketball.
After we beat USC, I told our players in the locker room, guys, we're going to the Rose Bowl, we're going to have some fun.
We had a different idea of what fun was. To Dick, it was work hard and get a chance to win a bowl game. To us, we were ready to have some fun.
In coaching, I never felt like I worked hard. You know, that was just, it was a passion. I was doing exactly what I wanted to do, and it wasn't like going to work. It wasn't like getting your hands greasy.
A lot of the players just like, we're supposed to be enjoying it. Going to Disneyland and Laurie's, the Beef Bowl. And we did those things, but he wasn't going to go on national television and not have a team well prepared.
We're going to play Ohio State, #1 team in the country. Evaluating the fact that we only have 15 days of practice, well, the only way we could get a lot better, maybe gain an edge, is to have 2 practices a day.
And we're like, excuse me? Double days? For a bowl game?
And with that, we had a player rebellion.
Making wine starts from what appears to be dead vines, but they're not. They're just going through the process and the evolution of springtime, and all of a sudden the berries start appearing. And if you take good care of them, they keep producing.
UCLA's budding young coach had his team in the Rose Bowl, but faced his first test before the game was even played.
John Shire came to me in my office, said, Coach, the players aren't getting dressed today. They say they aren't going to practice. Sort of startled me.
I said, Coach, you know, the players are thinking that we're working too hard and that, you know, they're getting tired.
You said we were going to have a lot of fun, and we're not having any fun. We don't have hardly time to eat lunch. So I went down to the locker room, and there they were.
And somebody kicks open a door, and in comes Dick Vermeil, and he just flips out.
Get on the field in 15 minutes, okay? Or I'm going to go up to Bruin Walk, and I'll find students who want to go on national television and represent this institution in the best way possible, and they're going to be doing it by working hard.
And he said, would you rather 20 years from now tell your children, and 30 years from now tell your grandchildren that you played in the Rose Bowl against the #1 team, or would you rather say, hey, we beat the #1 team?
Shire will put it up. There it is.
Well, one thing we know, Kurt, Dick Vermeil worked his people, and it's paying off. Hard work always pays off.
When you look at the odds, and I believe we went off at 17-point underdogs, I think it's arguably one of the greatest upsets in Rose Bowl history.
So they learned something, you know. The harder you work, the better you get.
Before the game concluded, with about a minute left, the teams were down at one end of the field. I'm on the sideline. I looked up, and here comes Coach Woody Hayes. He's walking across the field. The clock is still running. The game's still being played.
And I saw him walking across the field, and I said, oh, my gosh, here comes Coach Hayes.
The old master going over to young Dick Vermeil.
And he walked all the way, got right in front of me, grabbed me, gave me a hug, and he said, fine job of coaching, young man. Turned around, walked away. Startled the hell out.
Having Woody Hayes concede like that, I mean, it had never been seen or heard of from somebody of his stature, you know, that was a big thing.
He'll never have a greater victory probably throughout his career than this one, no matter how many more years he's ahead goes.
We all thought, hey, we're going on to a national championship next year. And then Dick got a call from the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
We're not doing anything right.
For Eagles owner Leonard Toews, next year couldn't come soon enough.
Well, in '75, they started calling us the Beagles. We were the dog team. We were a team that was underachieving.
We were playing a Monday night game against the Los Angeles Rams.
And I'm sitting in my seat, and I hear this chant start. The fans were chanting, Alpo, 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 Alpo.
And I remember in the fourth quarter, I saw this 12-foot papier-mâché bone being thrown onto the field, and I said, it can't get much worse than this.
After a 9th straight season without a winning record, head coach Mike McCormick was fired, and the Eagles' search for a new direction began.
We had quite a list. You know, we interviewed, the first guy was Norm Van Brocklin. And then we went down to the Super Bowl, and we had a really good interview with Hank Strand. We had a little CIA meeting with Joe Paterno and a few more guys. But we're in the Doral Hotel, and we're watching the Rose Bowl.
As his administrative assistant, I actually took the call. It was from Jim Murray, the general manager. And he said, Carl, Mr. Toast, the owner of the Eagles, and myself are out here in Hollywood, and Mr. Toast wants to talk to Dick about the head job with the Philadelphia Eagles.
And I said, no, I'm not interested.
And now he tells the entire staff about this call. Man, we're on our way to a national championship team. We can be that good here at UCLA, and that's what I want to do.
The coach said, you're crazy. Here's my 10-man coaching staff. You're crazy. You should go talk to him.
In the middle of the interview, he said, Jimmy, can I ask you a question? I said, Coach, that's why I'm here. Why would I come to Philadelphia? I said, what the heck does that mean? And he said, those fans. I said, you will see. If you win the toss, you'll get a standing ovation. That's how bad we are.
I talked to George Allen, and I said, George, it's not a very good job. He said, Dick, if it was a good job, somebody would already be there doing it. He says, you go there and turn it into a good job.
So we had a family vote, and it was 4 not to and 1 to come to Philadelphia. So you can guess who voted yes.
Didn't go over real well. No, they were not happy. But in deciding to go, I just felt it was the best thing for my career, which really, in the long run, the best thing for my family.
There are only so many NFL coaching jobs available, and not very often are you offered the opportunity to coach one.
It was a bad franchise, and it was in a bad way. So I think probably Dick felt, as I did, there's only one way to go.
It's certainly not going to be anything magic where you walk in and put on a new green helmet and all of a sudden they become winners. It'll take some time, but I didn't come here with the idea that 5 years from now we'll be successful. Or 5 years from now, if we're not successful, I won't be here and don't deserve to be here.
Producing good wine is like producing a good football team. You have to have patience, you have to have good people. You have to have people that know what they're doing, that you can trust and are committed to doing it right. It's usually at least a 3-year process to get these grapes raised to the point where they're producing, and each year they get better. A lot also depends on your technique, just like your offense and your defense. You say 3 years, you get it going.
It takes time, because we're not going to go out and get a lot of great players all of a sudden. We've got to make the people we have better, and that starts with the mind. Like I say, hell, no shame in getting blocked or knocked down. Just don't stay there very long. Throw a fit.
I can remember the very first time I saw him, I said, gosh, he's almost too pretty to be a coach.
Fresh face, California boy. He looked younger than me.
That's it, that's it, that's it, that's it. All right.
Vermeil may have looked Hollywood, but his work ethic fit blue-collar Philadelphia. His training camps could be described only one way.
Tough. Tough.
Tough. It's tough. You would sell your soul for a cold drink of water.
2 hours in the morning, 2.5 in the afternoon, full pads. I mean, it was gut check time every single day.
We've had 3 plays and 3 screw-ups. Now get your heads out of your so let's go to work.
You know, we thought the guy was nuts.
Oh, Rob. Sake. You can't throw the ball blind like that. Read the program. Let's go.
While Dick Vermeil was starting a revolution, the rest of Philadelphia was celebrating one. 1976 marked the country's 200th birthday, but at the Eagles training camp, where fireworks rung out overhead, it was business as usual.
You know, what's going on out there? And hey, Coach, we're celebrating our bicentennial here. Tell them to get quiet up. We got to get back to work. Let's go.
He needed to weed out the guys that weren't committed to being successful. There were a number of guys that were playing for a paycheck, and when Dick Vermeil came in, we were playing for a championship.
I can remember a guy walking off the field, throwing his helmet here, taking his jersey, another 10 yards, throwing his jersey over here, and walking toward the dormitory. He quit. He's had enough. He didn't want to play anymore. So, and I respect that. Good.
Defensive team is up, guys. The big thing is get out there right off of that first series and let them know who you are and why we're here today, to get after their ass. Let's go. Come on.
You know, he was as demanding as you could be as a coach, but as compassionate as you could be as a human being. And very few guys can juggle that.
I want you to hear me when I say this. You never have to worry about me jerking you.
It's our ball game now. Our ball game. Now we just flat ass kick the out of them.
We won football games because of that, because of our conditioning, our commitment to each other, and the coach's love for our football team.
Vines take 3 years to produce, and by their third season, the Eagles had a winning record for the first time in 12 years.
To me, I've never thought it was magic. You just keep playing, and all of a sudden, good things happen to you.
But it has happened as the Eagles beat the Giants at the Meadowlands.
A game that was over, we should have lost. We won because of that mentality that we're going to play every play. We're going to play to the whistle. We're going to play till 0-0 on the clock. Is kind of the way Dick Vermeil had coached us.
Eagles are winners, Ronnie. The Eagles are winners.
Vermeil wasn't a miracle worker, he was just a worker. And in 1980, all that hard work paid off. The Eagles won the NFC East for the first time in franchise history.
You're a champion. You're a champion. Finally.
Their hated rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, stood between the Eagles and their first ever Super Bowl.
When we came here, maybe you shouldn't do this as a leader, but I did it, and maybe it was a mistake, but I put the Dallas Cowboys and Tom Landry up there. And all through training camp, I would talk about someday being good enough to beat the best team in our conference, and that's Dallas Cowboys.
Let's do the best we can at taking advantage of it and let the chips fall where they may. Here we go.
This should be a touchdown right here, Dick. Yeah.
Of course, gives off inside.
I'll tell you where you're going. You're going to the Super Bowl. You know, he's going to the Super Bowl is where he's going.
You know, I come out in pregame warm-ups and visiting stadiums, and some guy will yell, "Hail Vermeil, why don't you cry for us?"
My first time in a team meeting with him, he cried. And I looked around, I'm like, he's a football coach. What is he doing crying? It's just, like, you don't cry in football.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, because, you know, we put a lot of work into this thing, and you guys do all the physical work.
It was a very weird thing to see him cry in the beginning. And when we first saw this, we were looking at each other and said, what's wrong with this guy?
12 years. 12 years are going by since the Eagles have been a winner.
I was always emotional. That's just me. You know, it's sometimes to a strength, sometimes to a weakness, sometimes embarrassing. For a long time, it bothered me. Okay, I fought it, but it didn't help me to fight it because that was me.
Lawrence and I have experienced a lot of things.
It's a way to pay a debt.
I don't want people to mistake the fact that his emotions and his crying means he was weak.
That people thought he was soft. Anyone that played for Dick Vermeil will tell you, that was the hardest darn guy you'll ever find. And there was nothing soft about Dick Vermeil.
He cried with joy and he cried with sorrow. But more than that, he spoke with his heart.
Love you. Okay.
I admired him. I mean, to have that kind of emotion. And he transferred that to us.
Dick Vermeil's teams were built on emotion and hard work. In 1980, those traits carried them to an NFC title. And when the team touched down in New Orleans for the Super Bowl, there was no partying on Bourbon Street.
Feel pretty good to be here now?
Yeah, I'll feel better if we can win.
We came back after beating Dallas. We went to basically double-day practices.
That week of practice in New Orleans was brutal, and we basically went back to training camp.
I got the formula. This is what was worked in the past. Why not? That's what good leaders and managers do. You take something that has worked in the past, and so let's stay with the formula.
Hard work never hurt anybody. And hard work is really relative to what you're used to. Our guys are used to working hard.
You know, I was ready for Dick to give them that speech that he had given the UCLA Bruins about what do you want to tell your children and your grandchildren.
We're all look a little bit tight. They look exhausted already because of nerves. We got to get them to relax a little.
That week was very intense.
Steps up. Can't find anybody yet. Takes off running to the left. Rolls on the move. And it's hot like taking the 40.
Between the night meetings and the long practices, we were a little worn down.
But we did not lose the game because of the hard work. We were there because of the hard work.
Play like that in a big game like this, hard to imagine. Can't understand. Yeah.
We lost. Dick probably took it harder than any player because he always wanted to find a way to fix it. Dick was a fixer.
Right now, it's a somber feeling and a disappointing feeling, but
You don't ever get over the fact that you lost the Super Bowl, okay? It's not just like losing any other game.
There was only one thing left for us to do, and that's go back and win the Super Bowl. And I think Coach Vermeil put a lot of pressure on himself to do that.
Vermeil answered the criticism of overworking his team the only way he knew how, by working even harder.
I drained myself. And being the emotional person that I was, I couldn't get over a loss, and I'd be blaming myself. So I just kept adding hours to the day to try to prepare better.
Ooh, man.
I was my own worst enemy.
I live in a state of concern, especially early in the week in preparation about everything. The more tired that I am, the more down that I get.
He was exhausted. He absolutely had a breakdown. He was broken down.
At the time it's happening, it's like a tsunami. It was not a problem, it was a crisis. It was very obvious.
I think one more Saturday morning I drove into the stadium hurts to talk about it. And I couldn't get out of the car. I could not get my butt out of the car to go up in the office during the season, late in the year. I said, something's wrong with me. And I called Carol. I said, Carol, come and get me. I'm a mess. Ooh. It embarrasses me now.
It takes its toll, I think, on any coach that puts that much time in and loves his guys. He was just exhausted.
He was a mess. He was a mess. We were hurting for him.
I just said to him, you gotta get out of this.
So the next day, I announced I was going to take a year off. I was emotionally burnt out.
Right now, I'm going to take my own advice and step down out of coaching. am emotionally burnt out and therefore feel that I need a break.
I was one of the first he told. I mean, Dick was almost like my dad. He gave me a big hug and we started talking, you know, and he had tears in his eyes. We were all kind of shocked.
I hope very much my players can understand where I'm coming from. I love those guys. I love these people. All the people of the Eagle organization. And it's not an easy thing to do to say goodbye to them.
It's a known fact that Wayne gets a lot better with age, and hopefully that was a reflection of my coaching career as well.
They're executing their passing game.
After leaving the Eagles following the 1982 season, Dick Vermeil entered the broadcasting world.
He was the perfectionist, doing that stuff just like he was the perfectionist as a head football coach.
He'd know your mother's name, your father's name, where you're from, how many brothers and sisters you have, your favorite color.
Believe me, fans, you don't know how complicated this game really is.
He overdid that, too.
Have you done anything different?
Yeah,
and looking at that,
thing we've done. Yeah, I felt like we went in last year a little tired, a little worn out.
Which can happen.
He wasn't just there to broadcast a game. He was there to learn about the football team and learn about the people. He was going at it just like he coached.
And I got to go watch all the other coaches coach.
Have you changed your practice organization through training camp much from last year's experience?
I'd walk away and I'd say, geez, I like how they're doing this. Geez, I like how they're doing that.
He'd get to look behind the curtain at Joe Gibbs and Bill Parcells and all the assistant coaches. He became a better coach when he saw all the different systems.
Because the wide receiver.
The plan was for a one-year break from coaching. But after a decade had passed, the plan had changed. Not even his longtime friend could lure him back.
When I took the job in December of 1988, he was the first call I made. And I said, "Are you ready to come back to coaching?" And he said, "No, I'm not." He said, "I appreciate the offer." I mean, he would have been the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs in 1988.
All but one of the 14 years I was out, an owner talked to me about being a head football coach. I just didn't feel confident enough.
The itch returned in the mid-90s. After nearly reuniting with the Eagles in 1995, Vermeil began talking to the franchise that had given him his first pro job back in 1969.
I think for him, he couldn't handle incomplete. I think he thought, you know what? I know what I did right. I know what I did wrong in Philly. If I get the opportunity, I'm going to get a chance to finish the painting.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending today as we introduce Dick Vermeil as our new head coach.
The St. Louis Post-Dispatch ran the article a day after we hired him that said, Dick Vermeil, ?
People are going to say, well, Vermeil's a retread. Vermeil's 60 years old. He's a has-been.
Games passed him by. Why is he coming back? All the negative things you people are going to say, and rightly so. He's been away from football.
It was such a bold move on their part. Who would hire somebody out of the league 14 years?
Let me tell you what I've been doing for the last 14 years. Not one football coach in the National Football League spent 5 years, that's coaching today, spent 5 years prior to that coaching assignment on some other great football coach's field watching him do it. What a tremendous, tremendous advantage.
He may have studied the game's great coaches, but when faced with the task of turning the lowly Rams into winners, Vermeil turned to the methods he knew best.
Oh, yeah!
His own.
Drive him, okay, back up.
No substitute for explosion out of that stance.
When he came to the Rams, he went right back at it just the way that he left it.
It's early morning. I'm on my way. Gonna work so hard. Oh, good job. Gonna work all
Head up, chest out. Head up, chest out. That's good.
Needless to say, we need a lot of work.
We had 2 days and full pads all the time during the season.
Wasn't a 5-minute break. Just get your water and let's go to work.
It was clear in the first 2 years the players weren't particularly receptive to the work schedule. I think one of our veterans made a comment like, we played 3 games a week.
Yeah, but hey, it's first day.
That's true. How's it better?
No question.
Coach Vermeil knew this is how I did it before, and it always paid dividends. You look at it for 6 weeks, I got a 3-year plan and how I want to play this out and how we're going to grow.
Good job. Just keep doing the right things right.
The work put in was not generating positive results on the field.
Those first 2 years were very, very tough. Very, very tough.
Same old sorry-ass man. So long.
St. Louis won just 5 games in Vermeil's first year and went 4-12 the next season. The coach was feeling the heat.
Needless to say, we're really disappointed in our performance.
To see the team start to revolt, no surprise to me.
It got ugly in '98. We called a players-only meeting, and we were going to have a coup. Guys were saying, we're not going out to practice. We even brought Coach Vermeil into that meeting at the end, and it was Coach Vermeil up on the stage against all of us players.
Here they are. I had them all in a meeting room. I said, I want everybody here to write their #1 complaint down. Why they're here and why they're bitching.
He listened to the guys this time. He listened to them. He said, now, I'm not going to change everything, but I may change a few things.
I don't think I would have done that when I was at the Eagles. If I had been the stubborn Dick Vermeil, I may not have matured to the point where I'm listening to other people as well. I never did become a different person. I just better understood my strengths and weaknesses and gradually changed my process. Winemaking is much like building a team. You watch it grow, you watch it grow, you watch it grow, and once you get it in the bottle, and once it ages and you start drinking it and get the satisfaction of the whole process. Yes, it takes a lot of time, but it is really worth the wait.
You know, you veterans that were here a year ago for your first session, compare that one with this one, huh? Not even close.
Listening to the players who have been there, this is the most lenient he's ever been. He's bending a little bit. He's giving us a little bit.
They saw him change. Our practices were efficient, but a lot shorter.
Small signs that he was learning that there's more than one way.
Dick Vermeil had backed off his practice habits. He added new talent to the Rams' offense and relinquished control of that offense to Mike Martz.
He became more of a head coach and a management person, an administrator, and a coach of coaches. He didn't try to do everything himself.
Here's what's amazing about it. I know what's best for this football team. I know I've got to stay out of this. I know that. He let us do our job, organize everybody, inspired everybody.
Trent Green comes in here, the real hope for this offense. We've been talking about him all game and all preseason.
After a strong start to the preseason, Vermeil's ability to inspire was put to the test.
Now we got Trent Green down. We've got Trent Green down in the middle of the field.
Players were devastated. When he got hurt, a lot of their hopes went with him.
You get emotional, you know, it hurts. But that's what this business is all about.
That was one of the most impacting coaching reactions I have ever seen in my 35 years in the National Football League.
We are not going to use Trent Green as an excuse for losing.
We will rally around Kurt Warner, and we'll play good football.
The Rams got behind Dick Vermeil and their new quarterback.
Warner throws down the middle. He's got it. Touchdown.
They transformed from 4-12 to the greatest show on turf.
How about that offense? How about that defense?
The St. Louis Rams are Super Bowl bound.
I can remember being wound up in a lot of knots when we landed to go to New Orleans to play.
I can tell it was a different coach. I can tell that he did not want to make the mistakes that he made in Super Bowl 15.
I'm on the field with him pre-game. My mind kind of went back to 1980.
We get an opportunity like that? Got Harold Carmichael over there singled up?
I'm telling you, he was so laser focused on that game, wasn't aware of the surroundings. And the change was, as I come on the field, he comes up to me, we give a hug and we're talking. He says, hey, where's Carroll sitting?
I think Carroll's over there. Oh, hey, that's great.
I said, Coach, he's up there right in the stands. Immediately, I thought, they're going to win the game. He's in a different place.
Have some fun, buddy.
All right, I will.
Just play within yourself.
All right.
Gotta go to work.
Done a hell of a job, buddy.
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate it.
Just relax.
I'm happy for you. Hey, I'm
happy for you.
Hey, listen, I have not been so relaxed in my whole life. Honestly, gotta help.
I'll try to help in any way I can. Hey, Will, we've been here before. We gotta do it better, huh?
You know, I love you, man. I love you too.
Couldn't ask for a better script. Let's go win it right now.
First and 10 from the 27. Warner back to throw. Rainbow's the far sideline. And it is caught by Isaac Bruce. Makes a move to the 30, 35, 20. And they won't catch him today. Touchdown, Rams! So it all comes down to this. 6 seconds to play.
All right, guys. Last play of the game.
McNair drops. Throws right side for Dyson. He dives for the end zone.
Didn't make it. That's it. We won it. That's the game. It's over.
I can't put it into words without getting emotional. It's just unbelievable sense of feeling. To me, it was humbling.
3 years. It's on.
Winning the Super Bowl, that's it. That's what you do it for.
We won the Super Bowl, did we not, huh? Did we win the Super Bowl? Put him a thumbs up. Give him a thumbs up. Give him a thumbs up, right? All right.
I thought all the way back to my Eagles. I wish I would have been able to share that same experience.
You're a world champion, buddy.
A lot of the players in that 80 team lived vicariously through Dick Vermeil. And when he had won that Super Bowl, we felt like we won the Super Bowl. We were that proud of him.
I think there's a lot we all learned, starting with the old coach. We all learned, but the basic principles that it takes to win will never change. You surround yourself with good people and work hard and be unselfish and care and don't be embarrassed to say I love you and I appreciate it. And because, guys, if you say it, someone else will say it back to you. And guys, I love you, and you know that.
Just look at the crowd going wild. There's Coach Dick Vermeil and Carroll making their way, waving to the crowd.
The day after the parade, he comes in my office and tells me he's quitting.
Dick Vermeil turned the St. Louis Rams around and coached them to a Super Bowl victory on Sunday. Tuesday, he retired.
I built that whole thing up into a thing, well, maybe it's better to go out a winner.
Such a shock to me. I really didn't believe it. Worked all these years to finally get here. Looked like we had all these pieces in place. But this was kind of close to crazy.
It's time, that's all. It's just time.
Dick's very emotional, though I do think there was an element of emotion in his decision.
And it was the wrong decision. you know, and I realized that when we handed out the Super Bowl rings.
It's my pleasure now to present Coach Montgomery with his World Championship ring.
I'm handing out all the Super Bowl rings in May that Georgia put on a great party, and I'm not part of them anymore. And then I realized, you know, I should have stayed.
We felt like we were only, you know, this far into this thing, and it would have been so great to keep that all together and see how far we could have gone.
This time, the layoff was shorter than 14 years.
It gives me great pleasure to, quite candidly, do something that I wanted to do 12 years ago.
He had the perfect storybook ending in St. Louis, but I think his love for people and his love for the game just brought him back.
That's it, that's it, that's it, that's it. All right, roll those hips. Roll the hips and punch.
This was sort of inevitable. Sooner or later, it was probably going to happen. That Carl and I would be back together again, rejoin, and initiate a new crusade.
Vermeil's new crusade followed the formula. In year 3, they were 13-3 and had the top offense in the league.
Touchdown, Priest Holmes.
Another Super Bowl trip did not happen, but the man who stressed and stressed about winning found his football life was much more.
For him, it was always about the passion that he had for the game, the passion that he has for people and the relationships that he builds. He helped the organization from top to bottom understand that.
After 5 seasons with the Chiefs, Vermeil called it quits. This time, for good.
I have so much love and admiration and respect for you guys and the coaching staffs, and hey, I'm going to miss it.
For me, that meant I lost my coach. I can remember being in pregame warm-ups, just bawling uncontrollably. Yeah.
It's all right to cry. It's all right to cry. I love you.
It was like losing a father. I felt like I was losing my dad all over again.
Forever, huh? Forever. Right?
And Dick was a born leader. Dick would have been a great elected official. He would have been a great CEO. He's just a born leader. He believes first, and then he makes you believe.
If you wanted to hire a coach to dig you out of the mud, he could do that to this day. He goes about selling wine, doing the same thing in his winery.
You might want to taste the Zinfandel, too.
This is the Zin?
No, this is a blend. It's like 40% cab.
Regardless of what he's doing, he's coaching people. That's what he does, and that's who he is. I mean, he never stops working.
Hard work is not a form of punishment.
He does not do well with any idle time. Even now, he has to be busy and productive. He's crazy in a way.
I don't think I'll ever just sit down in a chair and say, hey, I'm just gonna wait till my time comes. I don't mind sitting down in a chair and sip on a good glass of wine. That's how I was raised, but that's about as relaxed as I get.